For years now, the country has had a good laugh at those hundreds of Americans who were panicked by Orson Welles' broadcast of The War of the Worlds. Imagine believing that humanity was being wiped out by invading Martians. It seems ridiculous now, but then we're not living in October 1938. Those Americans had lived through 8 years of the Depression. Millions had seen their comfortable lives swept away. Over 11 million workers were unemployed. 23 million Americans were receiving some form of government assistance. And as if that weren't trouble enough, the Roosevelt administration was warning America of the growing fascist dangers overseas. Earlier that year, Hitler pressured Austria to submit to German rule. In Germany, the Nazis were persecuting Jews, shutting down their businesses and stealing their wealth. Anyone the Nazis considered an enemy was imprisoned, and many were murdered. Americans were more concerned with Japan's brutal invasion of China. Already, 1 million Chinese had been killed or wounded, and several million died from hunger. Fascism was also advancing in Spain. General Francisco Franco's army was pushing back the elected government's forces with the help of the Germans. In March, Franco bombed Barcelona, killing 815 people. In 3 years of fighting, 500,000 Spaniards had been killed. Now, the danger had traveled across the ocean. Fascist groups were forming in the U.S. Nearly 1,000 members of the Fascist Bund organization were camped in New Jersey. Just the day before the broadcast, members of the German-American Bund had paraded in Manhattan. All year long, Americans had watched conquerors grabbing up territory, and their friends in our own country getting louder and more threatening. A terrible mass invasion didn't seem so impossible in 1938. There's another reason not to laugh at the panicked mobs of Americans that October 30th. They never existed. They only appeared in newspaper stories. Only 2% of America's radios were tuned to the Orson Welles broadcast. News stories of listeners taking their own lives or suffering fatal heart attacks from the program were never proven. Life went on as usual in American cities. A new law had just established a 40-hour work week and outlawed child labor in factories. The country was looking forward to Tuesday's big race between Seabiscuit and War Admiral. The British Prime Minister had just announced he'd secured peace in our time. And whatever panic there had been from the broadcast melted away in a day or so. But the newspapers continued to play up the story, to sell papers, and to discredit the new electronic medium that was stealing away their audience. This video was brought to you by the Saturday Evening Post Digital Archives. Saturday Evening Post members can explore our 200-year-old archive and receive 6 issues of the Post print edition for only $15 a year.